Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. What we're going to do right now is go back.
You're on 1-year-olds, and why athletes not much more than 5 feet tall and 100 pounds can also end up in the money. It pays, of course, to ride millionaires like John Henry, who's won more money than any thoroughbred who's ever run. And sometimes it pays to bet on them. That helps explain why horse racing is America's #1 spectator sport.
Those really were some great times in the Sport of Kings. The glory days of racing, as we used to like to call them. But today's show is not about that. It's not about a lot of the other news that's going on in the game right now. This show is about the fastest 3-year-olds, according to the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fastest one of all? And, you know, going forward, round and round and round we go. Where we stop and wind up, nobody knows. So we will find out. You know, again, like we discussed on some of the other shows, it's not who has run the fastest that's the fastest. Well, that sounds wrong, but it's the pattern. Who's going forward? Who's going to be the fastest? Can we project that? We'll see who is the fastest now, obviously, if we're just looking for that. But it'll be interesting to see these good 3-year-olds because going forward, you know, if we're going to see a 3-year-old beat older horses in some of the bigger races later in the year or in the Breeders' Cup Classic, it's probably going to be one of these ones that are on this early list that I put together. So we'll be back in a minute and we will dissect the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns for what I consider the fastest 3-year-olds and who are the fastest 3-year-olds according to Thorograph. So hang tight.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit PastTheWire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
It is here, the big day, the day almost all of us in horse racing wait for, Breeders' Cup Saturday. It looks like we're going to see some really, really impressive races on Saturday. It starts with the filly and mare sprint. One of my stronger opinions on the card is Goodnight Olive to start things off. I think she gets a perfect trip.
Goodnight Olive, 6 in a row and a Breeders' Cup champion.
We've got Modern Games going in the Turf Mile for Godolphin. The Godolphin and Aidan O'Brien horses we said on Past the Wire TV all week long on the backside. Those two contingents stuck out from all the rest. Modern Games looking for a big race from him.
Modern Games storming down the center of the course. Modern Games, a 2-time Breeders' Cup winner. You bet he is.
That is Rebels Romance, who in my humble opinion is one of Godolphin's better chances this year. Rebels Romance is a very, very good looking Godolphin horse that can absolutely win this race. Rebels Romance is a must use.
Rebels Romance rolling on the outside. Warlock got it. Makes her bend down toward the inside. Rebels Romance down the center of the course. Has it close to home. Rebels Romance wins the turf over Stoney.
We got Flightline that they're putting in the best ever category. There's no question that the race he ran in the Pacific Classic is one of the best races we've seen any racehorse run ever.
It is Flightline. It is spine-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like Raiders Cup Classic win. He won it by 8 lengths on the wire.
Arabian Night. Start with him. Have not seen him since, what was it, the Southwest at Oaklawn Park that he won right off his maiden breaker. I'm excited to see this horse come back. He's on the list of the fastest 3-year-olds, even though he's only got one start as a 3-year-old. As a 2-year-old, he ran a 2 1/4 in his debut. Made that debut Breeders' Cup weekend at Keeneland, I believe. I was there. It was impressive. He was fast. Out of that race, makes his 3-year-old debut in the Southwest at Oaklawn Park in the slop or the mud, whatever. I'm pretty sure it was sloppy, if memory serves correct. He was dominant, he was exciting, and he was fast. Not as fast as he ran at 2, but the 2-year-old race was a sprint. This was, a route in the slop, and he went from that 2 1/4 to a 3 1/2. So he didn't go forward like I like to see, and like we've talked about on some of the other races, but he ran 2 fast races early in his career as an inexperienced horse, and he was jumping, from a maiden sprint into a stake route, and he ran pretty fast. So I've got to assume, and it's only logical, that he'll be bigger, stronger, faster, more developed when he comes back. I'm hoping he does come back. He's been spotty on the work tab, but there's still plenty of time for some of these horses to emerge. We're at that time of year where we've run all the Triple Crown races. We've had a different winner for each one. We ran the Dwyer, we ran the Ohio Derby, 2 fills, kind of validated Mage a little bit with that. 2 fills is out, First Mission is out. We're probably not going to get to see how good they could have been. Or how fast they might have wound up. We do have the Indiana Derby this weekend. I don't think there's anybody in there. Verifying's in there, but I don't think there's anybody that belongs on this list that we're going to continue on. Now, Arabian Lion, another one from Bob Baffert's barn. So there's 2 already from Baffert that are on the list. Arabian Lion. He is flat out fast and getting super fast, and he's got a scary good pattern on a Thorograph. He was always a fast horse. He ran a 4 3/4 first time out, runs a 0 3/4 in his second start, goes forward, then regresses at Los Alamitos to a 9 1/2. Maybe he bounced, maybe he regressed, not sure what happened, but he came back okay, runs a 7 1/2 at Santa Anita, and then gets a little bit of time off from late January, early February to April, and man, did it make a big difference. Comes back, runs a 2 3/4 in the race at Keeneland. That First Mission ran him down when he opened up that lead and really ran a big race. at a distance that was probably further than he wanted to go at that point. I'm not sure about now. Comes back at Pimlico on the Preakness weekend in the Sir Barton, dominates with a 0 3/4 number, very fast, head of the class kind of number. Comes back and repeats that on Belmont Stakes Day on the cutback to 7 furlongs into Woody Stevens. So now he's done it going 2 turns. He's done it, cutting back to 7/8. Probably a lot of options for a horse like that. And he's got now, his last 3 races, 2 3/4, and then he pairs 0 and 3/4. That's a strong pair of fast races, 1 route, 1 cutback sprint. That screams talent going forward. Look out, Arabian Lions at on the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. The way I see him, he's right up there with the better horses and the faster horses, 3-year-olds. Archangelo, the Belmont Stakes winner. We talked about him a lot on the recap show, and reflecting on it, I was right and wrong at the same time. He ran a 13 as a 2-year-old, not setting the world on fire with that, but then he comes back, he runs a 10 at Gulfstream, runs a 5, runs that 1 in the race at Belmont, so he goes 10-5-1, big leaps forward. We said on the Belmont Thorograph show that I didn't think, unless he was an exceptional horse, that he can go forward again. His pattern screamed regression, and he did regress. He ran a 2 3/4, so he went 10-5-1, 2 3/4. Problem for me, he won anyway. I didn't think he would be able to regress and win the Belmont Stakes. I was wrong about that. I thought a faster number would win the race. But I don't think we were wrong about how we dissected the pattern and how we saw him as a horse that was going to regress off those big leaps forward. And I still see him the same way. I see 10-5-1, 2 3/4. He's supposed to run again, I believe, in the Travers. I don't think he can go forward. I think those big jumps take a lot out of a horse, especially early in their 3-year-old year like that. And that pattern doesn't scream forward to me. That pattern screams either continuing to regress a little bit, or maybe maintaining, where he is now, in the 2 3/4 to 3 range, and that's not going to put him amongst the fastest of the 3-year-olds. Cave Rock hadn't even run at 3 yet, and another one from Bob Baffert. Phenomenal pattern for a horse to move forward. I can't wait to see this horse get back on the racetrack as a 3-year-old. Again, he's been spotty on the work tab. Don't know when and where he's coming back, or if he's coming back. I assume he is. And if he does, look out. As a 2-year-old, he runs a 3, a 3, a 3. Those steady, fast numbers for a 2-year-old that we talked about, how they just scream ability. Okay, he was the head of the class going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Forte beat him, but he ran a 2 1/4 that day. That Forte beat him. So he went 3, 3, 3, 2 1/4, progressed, went faster. Now we're just waiting for him to make his 3-year-old debut. And I would say his pattern screams he will go past his 2-year-old number and run a fast race. And if he goes a point or 2 faster, he's at a 1 or a 0, and he's right with the leaders of the pack. So look out for Cave Rock. He's definitely on the list of the fastest horses, 3-year-olds, and he hadn't even run a 3 yet. So if he comes back, he'll come back making noise. Disarm has got a great pattern, no question. Is he there yet as one of the fastest horses? No, but he's certainly got a pattern that says he certainly could be very soon. As a 2-year-old, 15 3/4, 6 1/4. Okay, comes back at 3, doesn't go past the 6, but runs a 9. All right, goes forward a 5, pairs the 5. We love those paired decent numbers, not like those 3s, but 5 is okay. He pairs 5s. Then he runs a 3 1/2, in the Kentucky Derby and runs a 3.5 in that race at Ellis Park that he won when he come flying and got up. So now we look at his last 4 races and they scream forward move. 5, 5, 3.5, 3.5. 2 points forward, 3 points forward, which is very possible. Puts him right there with the fastest of them. Extra Anejo. He's on the list because a couple of people wrote to me and left in the comments when I was talking about fast 3-year-olds that I hadn't mentioned him as one of the ones to watch. So I put him on the list and figured we'll take a look at his pattern. And he's fast, but he's not as fast as the others yet. Is he going to be? We'll find out. I think he run a really big buyer. I don't really look at buyer numbers first time out, and that's what got everybody all hyped up on him as a 2-year-old at Keeneland in October. But he run a 4.25 on Thorograph. Good, not phenomenal, but good. Comes back at Churchill Downs, runs a 7. Then at Ellis Park in a race that he figured to dominate, he runs a 4.25. So he's equaled his 2-year-old number. He has not gone past it yet. He's got to improve. He's not as fast as he's being touted and hyped yet. He's got a forward moving pattern, not as good as some of the others we talked about. Looks like he can certainly go forward. 2, 3 points, puts him at a 2. Maybe a 1 that would put him there, but only a point or 2, puts him at a, 3. That's not fast enough. 2 and change, 2, not fast enough. So he's really gotta take a good step forward, which is possible. And he does have a forward moving pattern, but it doesn't scream, hey, here I come, look out. Not to me anyway. First mission had a good pattern, not as good as everybody thought, not screaming going forward, but we're never going to get a chance to find out. He had a 2.5, 4, and then a 3.25 at that race at Keeneland. So I wasn't really sure which way he was going. I thought he was overhyped. I was going to bet against him in the Preakness and did. And well, we won't see with him. So that's just unfortunate. Forte, still a bit of a question mark for me. Okay. First thing we'll point out, interestingly, he gets a 1 3/4 in the Belmont. Arcangelo, the winner of the race, got a 2 3/4. So he got a better number than the winner. We like that. He was wide. A lot of horses were wide in the Belmont. It was just a race that had a lot of horses lose some ground. Happens. Forte is very fast and very steady, but he's not as fast as some of the others. And he hasn't taken that step forward. He's got a kind of steady pattern that he maintains, but he's never gone forward. And I think that the race in the Belmont was more due to a lot of horses just not getting the distance and not running at the end, and him just having a lot of class and running at the end. So I think that race may look and even grade out better than it actually was. Nobody was really running at the end of that race, including the winner, and none of those horses looked to me like they wanted to go 1.5 miles, him included. So we'll see what happens with him. I tend to think, based on his pattern, 2-year-old, 7, 10.5, 3 3/4, got good, 2 3/4, kept it going, 2 3/4 in the Breeders' Cup, comes back, Gulfstream, 2 3/4, 2.5 rather, regresses to 3.5 in the Florida Derby, where he had a rundown major. He had a lot more experience then. Vet scratches in the Derby, and then gets that 1 3/4 in the Belmont. I kind of has a pattern to me where it looks like we kind of know what he is. He's a 2. 1 and change, 2 and change, you know, kind of 3-year-old, which is very, very, very good and can win grade 1 level races under the right circumstances, but it doesn't make him one of the fastest 3-year-olds. No, it does not. And he has to take that step forward, which with all his experience and all his adversity, he has yet to do. So is he going to do it? I'm not sold. Hell of a nice looking racehorse, so I'll tell you that, but it's not a beauty contest. Go Rocket Ride, I put on the list. Not as fast as some of the others, but he's lightly raced. He's in Richard Mandela's barn. He is fast. 6.5 first time out in January as a 3-year-old, didn't run a 2. 4.25 at Santa Anita, the end of February. Then a 5 in his comeback race. So does his pattern scream going forward? Not really. He's got a 6.5, 4.25, 5. Doesn't scream going forward, but he's fast and lightly raced, and he's in Richard Mandela's barn. So he's kind of creeping his way onto the radar screen as a far out blip off in the distance. Blip out there, you know. We'll see. He's got to take a step forward, a significant one. But as lightly raced as he is, it's not impossible. Mage is right there at the head of the class. Okay, he's with the other ones that are at the head of the class. There's no question about it. You know, Mage, we know, didn't run a 2. He's the Derby winner. In his debut, he runs a 5. He comes back, has not a very good trip, runs another 5, runs a 3 3/4 in the race that Forte run him down, the Florida Derby. Was only his 3rd start in a short amount of time. Comes back in what I would say under the circumstances is still a short amount of time in the Kentucky Derby, runs a 0. Very, very strong race, as fast as anybody, okay? Comes back in the Preakness, runs a 3.5, but I don't think he got the best ride that day. He definitely didn't get the best setup. He was certainly entitled to regress a little bit, and now with a freshening, the experience that he has, his pattern to me screams a horse that's going to come back fast and faster than he was. And if he does that with that, you know, 0 Derby win staring us in the face, he looks like a 3-year-old that can run negative numbers. And so does Cave Rock, and so does Arabian Lion. And that puts those 3, in my opinion, as you know, so far on this list, the 3, you know, really fastest ones, and the ones that look like they're going to be the fastest ones. National Treasure is still a bit of an enigma, and I'll tell you why. He's got that fast race at 2 years old that still sticks out to me. At 2, Del Mar, 6.25, Santa Anita, 4.5, Keeneland, 2 3/4. Never got past that 2 3/4. Comes back at Santa Anita, runs a 4, fast race, but doesn't go past the 2-year-old number. Comes back, runs another 4. Pimlico in the Preakness that he wins, runs a 4. Comes back into Belmont, runs a 4.5. Didn't want no part of a 1.5 miles. That was pretty evident. None of those horses did, as we said, but he still run a 4.5. But what sticks out is the steadiness. 4, 4, 4, 4.5 at a distance that he didn't want to go. So we see those steady 4s, fast, not lightning fast, but those steady, repeated, even numbers like that just scream. And I say even, meaning, you know, even the same 4s, 4, 4s, not like odd and even. Just scream forward move. And to me, that 2 3/4 race is in there somewhere and is going to come out. We're going to see it. When? Don't know, but I got a feeling it's there. Tapit Trice. Tapit Trice, as a 2-year-old, runs an 8 3/4, 6.5. Gulfstream Park runs a 4.5. Tampa Bay Derby runs a 4 1/4. Keeneland runs a 1 in that big bluegrass win. 1 is fast. We know that puts him right near the fastest, and certainly, within a forward move of being as fast as anybody. 5 and then another 1. The 1 was in the Belmont, where he was wide like a lot of other horses. That's a good number for that Belmont Stakes. He's kind of developing an in and outer type of pattern, and I wouldn't call him a grinder or a plotter by any means. I think he's a fighter, and he kind of digs in and does what he has to do. And I think he ran that 1 also not wanting a 1.25 miles and a 1.5 miles in the Belmont. Like I said, they really, nobody was running at the end of that race. So does he have a forward moving pattern? Not really. He's got an in and out pattern, and it looks like the 1 might be his ceiling at this point. Now that's good enough to win a lot of races, but it doesn't make him one of the elite fastest 3-year-olds. Now, we're going to see Reincarnate come back in the Los Alamitos Derby. Skinner come back in the Los Alamitos Derby. They were highly regarded. We said before that the Indiana Derby is this weekend as well. So, we'll see if any of those horses emerge. Reincarnate, I think, has a lot of talent. I'm not as high on Skinner as a lot of other people are, but he has a right under the patient handling of John Sheriffs to, be faster and go forward. So we'll see, we'll see what happens with those two, and if they can, work their way onto this list of the fastest 3-year-olds according to the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns, or at least my interpretation of them. We'll be back in a minute with some interesting wrap-up talk and some talk about some future stuff that's happening. So bear with me for a minute, and we will be back. Legend himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
Frankie Dettori, legend, world-class jockey, one of the best ever to sit in the saddle, ambassador to the sport of kings. Meet Frankie during his fanfare like never before, only on Past the Wire TV.
Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
In the Breeders' Cup Classic, Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
There's a lot going on in the sport of kings right now. It is not all good. There's some crazy stories out there, crazy things happening. This show's not about that. We're not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about is a race over at Sandown in the UK on Saturday, the Coral Eclipse. Only 4 horses, but one of them is really good, and one of them is a monster. And I've talked about it before. Emily Upjohn is a filly going against the boys, and she comes from off the pace in a 4-horse field. And she's going to have to run down Aidan O'Brien's horse, Paddington, that's coming back on short rest, won at Royal Ascot, now coming back. She has, she's a lot fresher than he is. And the pace really favors him. But over there, the races are run differently, and she's really a lawnmower. Frank Dettori is suspended and will not ride her. But I said earlier on one of the shows where we were talking about the European horses and Royal Ascot, Inspiral is a monster of a filly that I think is good enough to win the Breeders' Cup Mile, even against the boys. Emily Upjohn is that good. So, this is not a betting race by any stretch of the imagination. But if you want to see a filly that really might be special and that you might want to bet or maybe bet against, come Breeders' Cup, I have a feeling she's going to wind up at Santa Anita for the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf, or even possibly the Breeders' Cup turf against the boys. William Buick rides her on Saturday, subbing for Frankie, for John and Thady Gosden, and she's really, really good. So if you're up in the morning watching races from the UK, that's definitely one that I would watch. Today, especially, is a day that I always think, in this time of year, of one of the best I ever saw, Ruffian. Ruffian broke or equaled the track or stakes record every time that she ran and finished, in the race, the match race that she broke down. Obviously, she didn't, but that doesn't really count. Every race she finished, she was first at every call, and she won at 5 or 5.5 furlongs to 1.5 miles. The Coaching Club American Oaks back then was 1.5 miles, and broke or equaled the track or stakes record every time she ran. Think about that. Can we say that about any other racehorse that had as many starts as she did? From 5 to 1.5 miles. Amazing filly that looked like a colt, met a tragic end. I wrote an article and a book about her. The book made its way to the Keeneland Library. How that ever happened, the book that I wrote made it to the Keeneland Library is beyond me, but my understanding is it did. The reason that I wrote that article and book is my friend Ray DiStefano. Ray is a phenomenal guy and has a phenomenal resume when it comes to horses, but Ray is the guy that actually held and cradled Ruffian when she was euthanized following the match race. And he was with her from the time she came out of surgery till the time they euthanized her. So was Dr. Pendergast, who was her regular veterinarian for Frank Whiteley. The reason that we wrote that story is I knew the real story of what happened to Ruffian, and it was never told. It was never accurate in any of the books. There were many inaccuracies and falsehoods surrounding her story and what happened to her. And it always bothered me because I thought, racing is a historic sport. She's a historic filly, one of the best ever, arguably the best, or certainly, in the conversation of the best ever. And I think that her history and what happened should be preserved accurately. And that's why I got Ray to open up and tell the story and help me facilitate writing that article. And, I reached out to everybody that was involved who was still around, including Jacinto Vasquez, who wrote Mike Bell, who was the barn foreman for Frank Whiteley at that time, Dr. Pendergast, who was our regular vet, Frank Calabrese, who handled her in the gate and was there on the backside when she broke down. You know, there were a lot of people that said they were in the recovery room and saw things that never happened. She woke up running, thinking she was still in the race. That wasn't true. There were other things that weren't true. And I'm going to put a link to the article in this video if you haven't read it yet and you want to know the real story of what happened and blow away some of the myths and falsehoods about what happened and what didn't happen. Read it. It's a pretty good article. It's a long article because there's a lot to tell, but it's from the people who were there. And one of the things I said, I didn't really want to take a shot at anybody personally who said they were there. That wasn't, because I knew who was there. Dr. Pendergast was there. Ray was there. They were there from the time she came out of surgery until she was euthanized. And the only other people that were there were the other treating vets. Nobody from the media was there. Nobody who said that were there that is not one of the people I just said were there. There was no way to see into the recovery room, so nobody knew what was going on except the people that I spoke to and wrote about in the article. And I think it's important that her history and legacy is preserved accurately, instead of being filled with embellishments and falsehoods and stuff like that. Just didn't happen. The real story is out there, and Ray really brought it to you. I got credit for it. My name is on it, but it was really Ray. So with that, we'll wrap this one up. I was going to tell you a funny story about the Wishing Well restaurant in Saratoga for Shane, who writes for us. If you're not familiar with his 2-year-old pontifications on PastorWire.com, you should be. He writes some great articles about 2-year-olds. He's the master with 2-year-olds. Saratoga's coming, Del Mar's coming, 2-year-olds galore. Check out Shane, get to know his stuff. The 2-year-old edge man, we call him, and we call the people that follow him edgies, and he's come up with some great ones. And his articles are phenomenal because he goes and runs down the 2-year-olds, and then he goes back and does wrap-ups of what we learned from the race and the sires and whatnot. So it's great stuff. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Appreciate all the support. Close out with this. We got coming the Haskell by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns, the Test by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns, the Travis by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. Any other races that you want, put them in the comments. Let me know. We'll see if we can get them done. But we'll watch these 3-year-olds on the list and see if we are right, wrong, or indifferent, because you never know. This is horse racing. So appreciate all the support and the love. Ciao for now. Nobody does it better.